A shoe washes up on a quiet beach 400 kilometers from Sydney. Inside it, a human foot. No body, no note, no answers. Just a running shoe. And the woman who wore it is the most wanted person in Australia. Her name was Melissa Caddick, and 3 months before that shoe touched the sand, she vanished from her own home in the middle of the night, hours after federal agents told her she was finished. This is the story of a woman who stole millions of dollars from the people who trusted her most, her own family, and then disappeared so completely that even science couldn't fully explain what happened to her. Melissa Caddick didn't look like a criminal. She looked like success. A harbour-view mansion in Dover Heights, one of Sydney's most expensive suburbs. Designer handbags, a luxury car, a glowing tan, and a wardrobe worth more than most people's homes. To her friends, her family, even her own parents, she was the woman who had made it. A financial advisor, someone who understood money better than anyone else in the room. That reputation was the entire con. Caddick ran a company called Maliver Pty Limited. On paper, it looked like a legitimate financial advisory business. In reality, she had never held a real license to manage anyone's money. Instead, she quietly used the credentials of a licensed advisor, a man who had no idea his name and his authority were being borrowed to make an illegal operation look completely legal. On top of that stolen legitimacy, she fabricated statements, fabricated trades, fabricated an entire financial history that existed nowhere except in the documents she sent to her clients. Here's the detail that makes this different from every other Ponzi scheme you've heard of. She didn't target strangers. She targeted people who loved her, her own parents, her closest, oldest friends. People who had known her for decades and had absolutely no reason to doubt her. They handed over their retirement funds, money meant for their final years, money meant for their grandchildren's education, and Caddick funneled it straight into her own lifestyle. Multi-million-dollar property, jewelry collections, a wardrobe so large that when police finally searched her house, they needed hours just to catalog the designer clothing hanging in her closets. For years, nobody suspected a thing. Her fake returns looked completely real on paper. Statements arrived on schedule, numbers climbed steadily upward. And whenever a client got nervous and asked to withdraw their money, Caddick always had a smooth, believable excuse ready. Timing issues, market conditions, paperwork delays. Just enough to keep the illusion alive a little longer. But somewhere along the way, someone noticed something that didn't add up, and they reported it to Australia's financial watchdog. On the morning of November 11th, 2020, agents from Australia's corporate watchdog and the federal police arrived at Caddick's front door with a search warrant. They spent hours going through every room of her mansion, seizing laptops, phones, documents, jewelry, artwork. Box after box of evidence, carried out of the very house her stolen fortune had built. By the time they left, Caddick understood exactly how much trouble she was in. And they made sure she understood one more thing before walking out the door. Hand over your passports tomorrow morning. You are not going anywhere. She never handed them over. The next morning, Melissa Caddick went for what looked like a routine run. Her husband told police that's the last time he saw her. Heading out the door before sunrise, dressed for exercise, just like any other day. And then, nothing. No phone activity, no bank withdrawals, no CCTV sightings anywhere in the city. A woman who had never once in her adult life gone unnoticed simply stopped existing. Here's where the case turns strange. Her husband, Anthony Coletti, didn't report her missing for 30 hours. 30 hours after his wife, under active criminal investigation, facing the total collapse of everything she'd built, simply vanished into the dark. And when police finally sat him down for questioning, his story kept shifting. Details changed. Timelines didn't line up. He told officers he was too busy with work to come into the station and clarify. Investigators later described him as strangely unperturbed, oddly calm for a man whose wife had disappeared without a trace. Police searched the cliff tops near her home, the exact kind of terrain where a person could vanish in seconds. They searched the harbor. Divers scanned roughly 6,000 square kilometers of water off Sydney's coastline before hazardous conditions forced them to call it off. Nothing. Not one confirmed trace of a woman who, days earlier, had been living one of the most visible, image-obsessed lives in the entire city. For 3 months, Australia was gripped by one question. Was Melissa Caddick dead, or was this the perfect disappearing act? Some believed she'd faked her own death and fled the country with hidden money. Others were convinced she'd walked into the ocean rather than face prison. The theories multiplied. The case became a national obsession. Then, in February 2021, 3 teenagers were camping near a remote beach called Bournda, hundreds of kilometers south of Sydney. They found a shoe washed up on the sand. One of them picked it up to throw it away and realized there was something inside it. A human foot, still inside a running shoe. Forensic scientists extracted DNA and matched it to a toothbrush from Caddick's own bathroom. It was her, confirmed. But here's what made this discovery even stranger than it already was. Marine biologists examined the barnacles growing on the shoe and determined it had likely only been in the ocean for 3 to 7 days before washing ashore, which meant this foot and this shoe had somehow avoided detection and decomposition on land for the better part of 3 months, only to surface briefly in the water right before it was finally found. Then, just as investigators tried to make sense of that, came another twist. More human remains washed up on a nearby stretch of coastline, and for a moment it looked like the mystery might finally be solved. Forensic teams rushed to test them, but the results came back negative. The new remains had nothing to do with Melissa Caddick at all. Whoever or whatever they belonged to, they weren't hers. No other remains connected to Caddick were ever recovered. Not a bone, not a fragment. Just one foot in one shoe on one beach. And an entire body that Australia never got back. The case went to a coroner's inquest, and what came out of it only deepened the mystery instead of solving it. 2.5 years after Caddick vanished, in May 2023, the coroner formally declared her dead, but she could not determine how, when, or exactly where Caddick had died. Suicide was named as a real possibility, one way she may have chosen to escape the personal and professional catastrophe closing in on her. But the coroner refused to rule out other explanations too, including misadventure, the idea that something happened to her that was never meant to end in death at all. And the coroner didn't stop there. She turned her criticism directly onto the police investigation itself, pointing to critical delays. Officers who didn't treat this as a potential homicide soon enough. Investigators who waited too long to pull CCTV footage that might have captured her final movements before she vanished for good. Evidence that may have existed once and may now be gone forever. And then there was her husband. The coroner's findings about Anthony Coletti were scathing. His shifting stories, the 30-hour delay before he even called police, his strange, detached lack of concern while his wife was missing and presumed dead. None of it proved he was involved in whatever happened to her, but none of it explained his behavior either. And the coroner made clear in her official findings that those questions were never properly answered. So here is where the story of Melissa Caddick stands today. A woman who stole more than $23 million from the very people who loved her most. A woman legally declared dead, but never fully accounted for, never fully explained. A foot recovered inside a running shoe on a beach hundreds of kilometers from home is the only physical trace ever found of a person who once filled every room she walked into. Her victims lost their retirements, their children's education funds, Years of trust they'll never get back, and money that, for most of them, is gone forever. Her husband walked away without ever being charged with anything. The police investigation was publicly criticized for the mistakes that may have cost the case its answers. And somewhere in all of it, the truth about what happened on the night of November 11th, 2020, disappeared right along with Melissa Caddick. The one question that still haunts this case, the question no court, no scientist, no investigator has ever been able to answer with certainty, is the simplest one of all. What actually happened to Melissa Caddick?